Let's welcome in the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. So, Kevin, the president's second term, markedly different from the first one. I was there for that. What is your biggest takeaway here in term two?
Well, they're moving as fast as FDR was moving in the New Deal in the 1930s, and that's appropriate because really what they're scaling back, Mark, as you know well, better than anyone, is all of the damage that's been wrought over the last 90 years initiated by the New Deal. And so it's appropriate that the president is upending the status quo. He's put on notice any American, whether they're a judge or a member of Congress, who would prioritize illegal felons, legal aliens who are felons over innocent families, who would prioritize people who want men playing in men's sports rather than what's normal and biological. In essence, what he's doing, as he said in his inaugural, is reinstituting common sense. And we need a lot more of that in politics and policy. We at Heritage could not be more optimistic about the foundation that's been laid in the first 100 days, not just for the next 4 years, let me say, but for the next 40.
Yeah, you mentioned being optimistic, and there's still so much more to do with the administration showing no signs of slowing down. What do you think we see by the end of the first year?
Well, I think what's really important is, as you led with in this segment, is that Congress move as quickly as it can to codify a lot of these great reforms of Trump's first 100 days. It's really important, especially given the choppiness in the market, that we compare, or we rather pair the good work that's being done to institute fair trade with congressional action to extend the tax cuts, and also, to the extent that we can, to change the spending trajectory, Charlotte, in Washington, D.C. That is unsustainable. The White House knows that. Speaker Johnson knows it. Leader Thune knows it. But it's really important, to your point about what gets done by the end of the year, that congressional action actually happen as soon as possible. If Congress waits until the fourth quarter of this year to get that done, that's going to introduce way too much uncertainty, not just in the New York stock market, but even more importantly in Main Street. I had talked to thousands of people, just regular, everyday Americans over the last several weeks, and they tell me that they, of course, support this agenda, but what they're looking for is some certainty from this congressional action on the tax cuts and spending cuts and continuing this reform.
Yeah, Kevin, one of the things, that process starts today in Congress with the reconciliation going in front of many different committees. Earlier in this hour, we had Kentucky Congressman, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, on, and he talked about where he thinks the bill stands. Take a listen.
We've identified nearly $51 billion in cuts or savings, however you want to describe it, that we're going to hopefully pass out of my committee today. I think we've got one Republican that's publicly said he's going to vote against it, but we should have votes to spare, and hopefully the other 8 committees over the next week will be able to pass out their savings. And at the end of the day, we hope to save around $1.5 trillion in the House that will all be given to President Trump to be able to extend his tax cuts and create some new tax exemptions like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime.
Yeah, Kevin, the other big part of that interview that I took away was when basically Chairman Comer doubled down on what President Trump said last night, was that if you're going to be a grandstander and get in our way, you might need to be voted out.
It's pretty stark claim, right? And given President Trump's seriousness in the last couple of cycles, members ought to take that seriously. I can tell you this from a policy standpoint. The framework that Chairman Comer has outlined is something that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, over the next 5, 10, 25 years, we're going to have multiple bites at the apple that is the federal budget. It's really important right now, given the momentum politically that President Trump has, that Congress take action that show the American people this framework that makes sense, that also is something that can get passed. I mean, mathematics is a reality, right? And if you're Speaker Johnson in particular, you've got this thin majority. You have to keep moderates and conservatives together. We ought to be really focused on taking a step this year that allows us to change the spending trajectory and put more money back in the pockets of the American people.
Yeah, great point. Kevin Roberts, thank you for joining us this morning.